Good. How you doing?
Hi, Randy. How are you? Great to
Excellent.
be with you.
Awesome. Thanks for joining. Really looking forward to this for sure. So everybody, welcome. This is episode 170 of Tech Sales Insights. Really excited to have good longtime friend Scott Wood on. He is VP and GM of Compute for North America at HPE, and we have a really cool title topic, which is go-to-market learnings from a football official. And yes, as you'll find, there are lots of learnings that can be used and leveraged. We're sponsored today by Octus IQ, who's a sales performance assessment sponsor of Sales Community. They basically have three great offers or solutions: Deal IQ, Sales Manager IQ, and Talent IQ. So Deal IQ helps to kind of really assess kind of where you're at in deals, where you're strong, where you're weak. So even if you have a medic or challenger, whatever methodologies, it kind of really puts the whole wrap around it, especially looking at some of the why and the how. Sales Manager IQ is really assessing, which a lot of people are doing these days, those first line managers and gaps there where you can do different or better. And then Talent IQ, I like to call it kind of the old school talent assessment and attribution that we all used to do and kind of have falling off. So really cool company there. And they're also a really kind of tag team with Sandler with the whole process. Tucker is helping us behind the scenes as always. So Tucker, thank you. You just put up the sales community link. So for those that are members, thank you very much. For those that are not, feel free to join. The free link is there, salescommunity.com/spring free. So Scott had lived for a long time in the Hartford area in Connecticut, but just very recently left and relocated to Orange County. So weather is definitely
Very
sure.
nice weather. Very
Sure.
nice weather. And it was quite the drive across the country. So it was a lot of fun.
Oh, awesome. That's great. And we first met. I basically inherited Scott when I was when I first went to HP about 15 years ago. And at the time, he was pretty much running on the pre-sales side, actually a group. And then Casey Choi was moving into another role. And as a direct report, I had that pre-sales opening, and I'm pretty sure Scott was probably the only one that was really a candidate. No offense to anybody else, but it's great to see you expand from the pre-sales role into just go to market and operations and inside sales and some of the things that you've been talking about, and just always extremely customer centric, responsive. Your team loves you, partners love you, so you certainly have a lot to be proud of.
Thanks, Randy. It's been quite a journey, and a good many years working with you and for you actually. So it's been fun.
Uh, Thank you. So we have a couple surprise intro comments. One is from Paul Hunter, who runs North America there at HPE. Says Scott is one of the most versatile leaders I've worked with. He's had 5 jobs in 3 years, and in every one he's made an impact quickly and produced results. His success in everything he turns his attention to has meant his stock price at HP is at an all-time high. With
That's
every
very
move, there you go. With every move, his potential increases. He's an incredibly accomplished leader who has the talent and courage to make a big impact to our company. He also carries the biggest number, so he's got broad shoulders. So pretty cool there.
That's
And
very kind and a surprise. I didn't know that was coming. So
there you go. Cool. And Antonio Neri, I pinged him, I think, Thursday or Friday, and literally within like 10 or 15 minutes, he responded. And Antonio says, Scott is a visionary, pragmatic, and technical leader that is helping HPE transform our HPE server go-to-market into an AI-first, hybrid by design compute business. His understanding of our customer and partner ecosystem is a key advantage. So
wow, wow, that's very kind of him.
you can put those in your file.
Yeah, you'll have to send me that.
Yeah, don't worry, you do. So jumping into the questions here, I always like to ask first about your first job after Central Michigan University in '88, and it was actually HP, right?
Yeah, it's kind of not the norm these days, right? People multiple different companies. I've had many roles at HPE, but I actually joined HPE right out of college. It was my first job. We had a person from HPE that hired on campus, and boy, I knew I wanted to work for them for like 3 years when I was in college. and I just kept waiting for that opportunity to be a senior in the interview for them. So they used to have a commercial at the time. It was called like "What If," it was back in the late '80s. I was like, oh, I love that commercial. I love that thinking, and really had them on my mind for a long time. So super excited to start my career and actually still be there, still be here.
Awesome. And then quickly, can you just go through maybe highlight some key roles, because we don't have time to go through everything.
Yeah. Go through the whole thing. Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I had lived in some part of pre-sales or consulting role for about almost 27 years. All different functions within the company, whether it was leading pre-sales people that were doing networking or storage, or even one time I did a little bit of a stint. We were doing PCs and printers when we were a combined company, and just had multiple different roles and levels of responsibility, from manager, director, and then eventually first VP job working for you, Randy, at the time. But saw a lot of different aspects of the business, did a little bit of consulting, and then about 5 years ago, really moved out of pre-sales into much more of the business management and running, and also now both business and sales responsibility for the business in North America. So it's been a fun journey.
Awesome. Very cool. And I don't know if you can say what your number is.
Well, what I will say is that because we're at our quiet period, but I will say the compute business in North America, or compute business worldwide, is about 12 billion, and we're about 40-50% of that number worldwide. So it's a big number, definitely multiple billions.
Awesome. All right. Very cool. So really excited here. Jump in the title topic: go-to-market learnings from a football official. So with kind of work and your awesome family, how'd you ever get into refereeing in the first place?
Right. It was not my intention. I actually was just trying to help out. My kids were playing youth football, and the coach quit after the third game, and they needed somebody to kind of help out. So me and a couple of the assistant coaches helped out. So kind of stumbled my way through that year, and then they asked me to come back and help coach. And I thought, okay, well, if I get some help and good assistance, I can make it work. But I played football in high school. And a lot of us play football, but I thought it's one thing to play it. It's another thing to know the rules and know what to do. So I was like, how do I learn the rules? And the only thing I could figure out, because if any one of you have ever tried to read a football rule book, you can't make sense of it. And so short version of the story was I looked up how to take an officiating class, had no intention of being an official, went through it that year, passed the test, never did a game, never did anything because I was helping coach. And then the next year, my wife's like, so you're going to stay with this? You're going to do something? I said, well, if I am, I should probably at least go get a uniform. I didn't even have that. So I did that, and did a few games that year. And I said, I kind of like this. It was just a good change, just Friday night, after a long week, everything going on. How fun is it to get out there on the field with the kids and be part of that? So it was really, a hobby of mine on the side. I got started, and I've continued to do it for 14 years. And I've gotten better and better, and had a chance to do a couple of state playoff games the last couple of years. So it's been kind of fun.
Wow. Very, very cool. And so as you're getting ready for those big games, and I guess every game is kind of a big game, but kind of the pregame routine has some similarities to what we do in sales, right?
Well, yeah. And I tell you what, here I am. I'm starting being part of this, went through the whole training certification process, and I started doing these games, and I start, looking at the discipline and the process you go through to be an official. And I thought, oh my gosh, in my mind, this was a hobby. And I say that lightly, because if you're a coach, and especially if you're coaching big, it's their job, and they really expect, excellent performance out there in the field, right? It matters. Right. But a good example of this, and I started experiencing this, and I started comparing it to my day job and the profession I'm in. And I said, there's a lot we could learn here. And a good example, just to kind of share this with people who may not be familiar, if you look at a high school football game, let's say a game starts at 7 o'clock. You have to arrive at the field an hour and a half ahead of time, right? So you got to arrive an hour and a half. And that's kind of broken up into three half-hour chunks. So the first half hour is just making sure everyone's there on time, that nobody's late. You're there. You use that time to get changed. People are getting dressed for the game. Sometimes you're running from work, so you got to bring your gear. You start getting your mindset thinking about football. You start talking about maybe what you saw the last week. Get out of all the hustle and bustle of the day, the phone, the customer escalation, the deal you're trying to get in, the deal you're trying to close. So you spend that first half hour just kind of getting focused. And then what really struck me was the next half hour is what's kind of called the pregame. And that's usually run by the referee. You know, there's different positions and football officials, but the referee or the white cap. And it is a very structured pregame review. So you go through every kind of scenario you're going to see, right? So it's a half an hour, but you're going through pregame responsibilities. Who's doing what in pregame when you get out there in the field? Like who's meeting with the coaches? What's your responsibility to make sure the field's set up? How are you reviewing the players, the teams ahead of time? You go through, what about running plays? How are you going to handle running plays? How are you going to handle pass plays? How are you going to handle kick plays? How are you going to handle scrimmage kick plays? And everybody who's on the crew participates in that, right? So everybody, the best pre-games is really active and engaged, right? You go through every person. Scott, you know, I do a lot of back judge work. I do a little bit of referee, a lot of back judge. Hey, what's your responsibility in a running play? Who are your keys? What are you picking up? How are you signaling to the lineman? If somebody scores, what are you going to do? How you make an eye contact? So the thing that struck me about it, Randy, is we do that every game, and you do it very structured. And no matter if you've been refereeing for 20 years or 30 years or 2 years, everybody goes through that together in a very structured way. And I was looking at, well, how the heck do people show up for a sales call? Like how many times have you seen somebody come with a sales call and people are flying in there 5-10 minutes before the thing, you're scrambling to figure it out.
Exactly.
And I was like, that's just unacceptable. I mean, this is the kind of
Right.
discipline it takes to have great sales calls, right?
Right.
One, is everyone there early so you don't have people showing up late? Two, do you actually have an account manager or leader taking everybody through their roles and responsibilities in that sales call? Like who's doing what? Who's covering this? If these topics come up, what's happening? How are we going to signal the people if there's, you know, we all sometimes know there's issues that come up. How are you going to handle those? Who's going to talk about them? I mean, I think you and I have been part of great sales calls like that where there's great planning, but the rigor and discipline to do this every time is what great looks like. And I think I started taking that away going, there's a lot more we could do in my day job. And I look at it and then the half hour that you get out there and you're there a half hour before the game starts and everyone's got their roles and positions and things you do. It's about, you know, showing up there early, making sure you're making the right customer contacts before those meetings. So I just took that as a really good best practice. And I said, if they do that at a high school level for something that is not the same sort of, you know, responsibility and commitment, and we're talking about with tens of thousands, millions, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars kind of deal, why are we not doing that same discipline? So I've tried to incorporate that into, you know, different teams that I've led and just think about this is what's required, and you don't get to shortcut it. I don't care how many years or how good you are, you just always have to plan.
Awesome. And then, so while in agreement with all that, you know, how many times these days, you know, for those that do go on face-to-face calls, you know, are they not early? You know, how many times people are going to Zooms, you know, even 3 minutes late, which is just, you know, hugely disrespectful, right? And that's just the basics.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's always that person that, you know, everybody in the sales team has talked about, you know, maybe a hot topic or something. The person shows up late. They weren't part of it. Sure enough, it comes up, and guess what do? They go say they talk about something, and everybody said we're going to cover it in a certain way, and they weren't part of the pregame, which is why you got to go through it.
Yeah, and then after the fact, then you know, film review would be similar to sales call review, right?
Well, and I think technology. You're right, Randy, and I think technology has changed. It's changed in the football officiating profession, but it's changed in our world in sales too, right? The capabilities that we have. So for the longest time, you know, if you made a call, you know, you had it at the pro levels where they had TV and national coverage and everything, but you know, in some colleges, but not even some colleges had it. But over the years, for example, there's an application called Huddle that most high schools all use, right? So
Yeah.
they film it, and pretty quickly after a game, it's almost instantly available. So you know, if I do a game on a late Friday night, if I wake up Saturday morning, you know, one of the first things I'm doing is I want to look at any penalty flag, questionable thing I had call. I mean, you make the decision in the moment on the field, but you know, you want to go review it. So I'm always up. I scan through it. You just, you know, in your mind, you're going, was it right? I swear it was at the time, but did I make the right call? So I try to look at every one of those things and review. And it's just this like passion for wanting to get better and use the tools you have to, judge yourself, because there's things you go, I miss this or we miss this. You look at the crew, you miss it. And so I do it there, and I kind of contrast it now with some of the tools, especially, for example, really proud of our inside sales team, which we call digital sellers, and some of the tools they're using and some of the practices we've started to implement with the same way. A lot of the calls are recorded nowadays, right, with the technology and how you're doing things. A lot of the calls use AI technology to highlight areas to bring up so you can search, review. But I always kind of question people: do you have that same sort of passion to look
Right.
at calls you've had with customers and go through it, review your call, listen for missed opportunities where the customer brought something up? Are you talking over them? Did you miss a keyword that you could have pivoted on something to talk about your solution or technology? I think there's pockets of good, but I don't think we're great in the consistency that we go through and have that kind of review. And then the other thing apart it that I find in officials, which is around the film as well, is putting yourself out there. So one of the things is that most organizations and different they call it kind of associations that are the different groups in different states and stuff. You'll have regular sets of meetings. Sometimes they're over Zoom, sometimes they're in person.
Yeah.
But usually it's having a willingness to say, hey, look, here's some film from our game. We missed this, we didn't make this, and show that to the whole group, right? And show where you're making errors or where you're doing things well, so people learn. And that's always kind of tough. People like, hey, I made a mistake, I don't want anyone to know about it. Do you take that same practice with your sellers? Do you take the same practice with your sales team? And one of the things we've talked about is this idea of film review, right? So take these calls, take good calls and bad calls,
Right.
and then share them with the group. Expose yourself,
Yeah.
go
Have
out
everybody
there.
learn.
Everybody
Yes.
learn and get better. It's not a criticism, but that's how you become great. And if you don't do that kind of stuff, maybe you're average, maybe you're good, but you're not great. And I think that helps make the team great. So we've tried to implement this idea of we need to do film reviews, and we should take these calls instead of just having it be one-on-one. We should share those and all get better from it, and put yourself out there and be okay to have that there, because you're just trying to get better.
Yeah, especially then you have Gong and others, where especially with Gong, where you can leverage the AI, so you actually get the real-time feedback of here's what was good, here's what bad, here's kind of a draft of a recap note that you can send, here's key points. But just kind of being able to leverage that technology for in effect that post-game / post sales call review really is amazing.
It's really changed. And I would say if you're not looking at those technologies, and you're not, it's one thing to look at it, and then if you're not rigorously using them, you're missing opportunities to have a world-class sales team.
Absolutely. And so for those that are watching or listening along, feel free to make any comments or chime in with any questions as well. We got Tucker behind the scenes that will pull them forward. And so some other similarities. So just like you have certification for referees, similar, you've got sales or technical certifications for our work teams as well, right?
You do. And I like to say, well, I think one of the things, and this is kind of a passion of mine, is I think generally in high tech sales, software sales, we're good at enabling people. Like, we're good at having training, we're good at doing sales enablement. I don't think we're as good at practice. Like, all of a sudden you get in a professional world, like you take training, you do this. We don't practice. Like, we practice on our customers for the first time. So one of the things that I found in being an official is like the rigor of constant testing. Right? You have to get certified every year, and you got to go through a 100-question test, and you got to make sure you do scrimmages and all that kind of stuff. But just the concept of you've got to constantly be practicing, and whether that practice is you sit at night and you review film, you review other people's film. There's some great links out there. Whether that's crew chiefs who send their teams questions every week that go through stuff. So I think it's the idea that I've kind of shifted and been pretty passionate about is you got to have a culture of practice where you got to have habits of practice. So it's one thing to take training. And one practice we do is we run these kind of pitch programs where every 3 weeks we go through another thing where everybody in the sales organization has to get up and stand and deliver. It could be a topic or whatever, but make it a habit, not a one-off thing you do. And you don't just, I mean, Randy, you can sit in training, but until you got to go teach somebody,
Do
until
it.
you got to go
Yeah.
practice, deliver it, you really don't know it. And why should that always be the first time in front of a customer? So, it's really kind of reinforced the idea is you've got to practice, 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 not just take training and get enabled. And then practice builds confidence, and confidence,
Right.
help customers feel like they want to work with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are similarities with communication with your referee crew and then also your go-to-market team?
Yeah, well, I always get questions about how do you handle coaches? Like, how do you handle, and there's all different. When you see it on TV on a Saturday or a Sunday,
Right.
you see these things on the sideline where coaches are just yelling and screaming, and you wonder sometimes, like, how do those guys put up with that? Like, what is going on at that
Yeah, great.
time in
Yeah.
that moment? And like, that's got to be just brutal. So there's a lot of time spent on how to handle those situations, and I'll just give you something maybe to notice next time you
Yeah.
see it. But when you get and watch this next time you see a really hot coach, and the people who are professional referees and D1 and college referees, they're incredible. And I love when we get a chance to kind of learn from them. But one of the things you never do, first of all, coaches want to be heard, right? Probably the most important thing from a coach is they want communication. If you ask a coach the most important thing to a good game or their experience to ref, they want to be communicated with. Nothing worse than when something's happening and they don't know. Right? The officials are conferencing, they're working on something, they're making decisions, and the coach just feels like what is going on? That is the worst thing. They'll tell you in every feedback, good communication makes for a good game for them. Even if they don't like the call, if they get communicated with. So a lot of times when they're hot and heated, like one of just the little techniques is you never face a coach directly. So watch when you see on
Wow.
a college game, when that coach is yelling or complaining, that referee will never be standing in front of that coach's face looking at him. They will always be to the side. Sometimes people will like put their hand like this, and if the coach is here yelling, be in my ear, I'll be looking at the field. Put your hand like this. You're nodding, you're communicating. It's just you want to diffuse trying to size up the coach, right? They got their fans, they got everyone there. They don't want to be embarrassed. You don't want to be confrontational, directly in front of that coach's face. That is never a good situation. You want to listen. You want to kind of acknowledge that they're being heard, and and then you just want to be transparent with them and honest. Sometimes you're like, hey coach, I saw you saw that. I'll try to understand what that official saw on the next break, and I'll get that back to
Right.
you. So there's ways to diffuse it, and it's kind of similar. Like, I kind of relate it to customers. Like, when situations happen, what do customers want? They want
Right.
communication, right? They want to know what's happening. Where's their product? What's going on with this implementation? And I think sometimes you'll see sales teams who, when things aren't going well, they clam up, right? They don't want to share things with the customer. They don't want to communicate as much because they don't think they have a good story or what to share. And I think it's the exact opposite. I mean, it works on the football field. I see it work with customers. The more you communicate, the more you're transparent. Um, don't get confrontational. Don't, the comparable. Don't be standing right in front of their face, in front of everybody else, and explaining why they're wrong and they don't understand the rules, and this, like, that doesn't work. It doesn't work with the customer. It doesn't work on the football field. So I think there's some good learnings there, that communication is critical. It's key. And there's ways to diffuse those pretty stressful situations.
Wow. Awesome. Really, really, really cool. And when you're officiating, is there any time where you actually are kind of enjoying, kind of almost like as a fan, the game or plays, or you just so focused in trying to keep the rules, just really, guarding the rules?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. First of all, some people will ask about the fans, and when you're down there in the field, you really don't hear the fans, especially in some of the position I am, where I'm in the middle of the field. But when you're down there, fans are yelling. You're focused on the game. When you're on the side, even if you're on the sideline and you're one of the wing officials, you got coaches and people screaming. I mean, they're screaming at their players. They're doing this. You kind of tune them out, because it's almost sometimes difficult to say, "Oh, you were talking to me." Like, there's times where they're trying to get a timeout. You think they're talking to their team or whatever. You're not listening to it because you're watching the things that that you do. And there was an episode on ESPN once where they followed, some of the D1 teams. They were kind of walking through the pregame. The guy said something, when you're officiating, an average play is about 7 seconds, 7 or 8 seconds. And, you have to be great 180 times for 7 seconds. That's your focus on that. And then obviously when plays are done, there's a lot of, you got to watch out for, off ball officiating, and that's where all the bad stuff happens. But it's a mental test, I find, more to not get distracted. It's really teaches you about focus and staying in the moment, and keep your eye on what's important. I hadn't really thought about it. It's a great question. I don't know if I've ever been asked that before, Randy, but it's kind of like, I think in business sometimes there's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of things that people want that can pull
Yeah.
you. And I remember working for Dan Belanger at the time, who we know well. And he used to guide people and say, don't get distracted by all this. Just, ignore this. Don't do this. Focus on what's important.
Right.
I think it's a little bit of that important, but it's fun when you're out there. It's a challenging. I think things people miss is there's really 3 teams on the field. And if you do a really good job, nobody notices you, which is kind of what you hope for.
But say if there's some like killer run or some, amazing pass, or somebody makes a great move, do you ever say, wow, that was actually pretty good?
Yeah, sometimes I'll you see it, it's awesome, and especially where I am, if somebody makes a play, you get a chance to say something to a kid individually, real close. Like, you watch somebody looks like your favorite, but it's like, hey, that was a great play. You'll get out there. What's really great now too is even down at the high school level, we almost all use headsets in communication, right? So when we see things happen, sometimes we can come over our radios and just say, hey, that, we can have some, there's a little bit more commentary about the game that goes on at times than maybe than there used to be.
You can't read out. Wow, that was amazing here.
Yeah, it's like, can you believe that? I can't believe, so we don't do a lot of that because you're usually using that for game situations that come up. But it's kind of it is fun. You do enjoy it. You get to see great plays, and close games are great, but you try to give every kid your best when you're out there.
Wow, amazing. And kind of from a rating perspective, has it really changed? So kind of sales, I'd say, probably, lots the same, but, lots changed. So, 20, 30 years ago till now, within sales, kind of ratings, criteria, importance of kind of different aspects has kind of changed. With the refereeing side, has it pretty much been the same, or have some things changed?
Well, I think, the one thing I think that is better there, and I wish I had the answer to this. Maybe it's a great opportunity for a software provider or something to create something here. I've thought about it, and I think it's a great opportunity, which is when you're officiating, as soon as the game is over, every official evaluates every other official in that game. So in one of the associations when I was in Connecticut, that I was part of, it's usually about 5 questions, and you rank them from 1 to 10. It was usually like pre-game readiness, communication, judgment, attitude, all these things, quality of calls. There's like 5 things, and you'd rank somebody 1 to 10. You do that after every game for every person. So
it's like a 360 review, but it happens every game. So can you imagine if you did that every sales call?
That's what I've been thinking about. You're exactly right. Can you imagine if you have done that on every sales call, or at least every meaningful sales call?
Right.
I think that would be outstanding. The thing that's always interesting to debate in is it's anonymous in the association I was in. You can put your name and you can put comments, and anytime you score somebody a 10 or gave them less than a 6, you have to put a comment and clarify, like, why are you giving them a 10? Like, why was that the best? But and usually you got to get so many scores, and then all of a sudden you'll see it. But boy, you get a lot of feedback. I'll have 200, 300, 400, scores and ratings from people during a season, and I contrast that to, the world a lot of us live in. One, you're lucky if somebody gives you honest feedback after a sales call. I think you're lucky. How many times do people walk out and you go, hey, that wasn't good, and the person who maybe was presenting says, hey, how'd I do? And everyone says, oh, that was good, and it wasn't. And then maybe you get feedback once a quarter. Maybe it's a half. If companies are good, or half a year. But I've thought that, Randy. Gosh, I wish there's a way that you could operationalize feedback after every call that people could give on people. I think that would be pretty much a game changer. I don't know how to solve that yet.
Yeah, in the workplace, I think it's kind of that has to be kind of a cultural norm, which you might recall would try and do. So I would go on sales calls and I'd say, do you have any feedback for me? And these reps would, like, what are you kidding me? They've never had any, exec ask for feedback, right? But then
Yeah.
eventually, everybody kind of figures it out, and then they may or may not say something, and then I then of course follow up. It's a perfect timing to say, hey, Scott, can I give you some feedback?
Yeah.
And you take take the good, take the bad. Okay, here's what we can do different or better. But I think that really, any great sales teams, that's just something that just has to happen, and it's probably more of a cultural norm as opposed to, I think a lot of people, oh, let's write it and let's not put our name on it, and it's ridiculous. You're all on the team together. You're all kind of in that Viking boat, kind of paddling away, and you can't afford to have any weak links.
Yeah, and I think you were always really good at that, and I think you're right that it's a culture. You got people who are accepting of it, will take it. I mean, when we're growing up, we play sports and do things where coaches are helping and correcting and guiding you the whole way. You don't think anything of it, and all of a sudden you get in a professional career and somebody gives you feedback, you're like, oh wait, does that mean? I was like, no, that's how you get better, right? I mean, you gotta learn, and people are usually really appreciative if you give it in the right
Yeah.
way. So I think there's some takeaways there that I wish we could find a way to kind of operationalize to have that kind of regular feedback when you go. It'd be really interesting if we could figure that out.
Yeah. So not as much real time, but ties in well with Octus IQ with their talent IQ, sales manager IQ, and deal IQ offering as well. So Tucker, you may want to just post their link for their website on there as well. So moving on here, you've also been a huge proponent of kind of college hires earlier in career hires, and it's had great success for HPE for sure. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I don't think I've mentioned this to you before, but I'll tell you. I think I really appreciate and kind of credit the opportunity when I first started working with you. Kind of a little story. That when I first, since I was a college hire, I've always been like, hey, it's a great experience. I wish I could give back. Like, how do you give back and give kids in early careers the same experience I had in a great environment with a great plan, great training, everything a part of it? And it's always hard to initiate that in a company because you make an investment that is a longer term investment, right? It doesn't start paying off for a year, 2 years, and people are always like, well, do I want to hire this expert now versus grow it?
Right.
We all know, but it's hard to make those decisions. And when I first started working for you, I brought this up, and you're like, I've wanted this for a long time. Go get this done. And that was really the first year we started. I think it was about, I'd have to check my notes or so, but I think it was maybe 10 years ago or so that we started that at HPE. And in the pre-sales world, we did it, which was kind of unique. So we did it in the solution architecture, technical selling world, and we've probably 3, 4, 500 people through over those 10 years. And I just even look at the dynamics within our company today, and it's a great workforce mix of very experienced people that can give back to earlier careers, and getting that right labor mix in a company, I think, is important for the health of the company. And I'm always so thrilled to see new people come through and have those experiences and provide an environment where they really can learn and grow and be successful. And I think it creates a great culture and a great company. And you're a big part. So thank you. I don't think I've ever had a chance to kind of tell you that. Thank you for that opportunity.
Easy. I did the same thing. I was EMC, and we all start. Most of us started that way, I guess. But awesome job by you putting the program together for sure. So, kind of with that function, I assume some is kind of finding new leads. Some of it is actual selling as well.
Yeah. We do it both now for both sales early career hires, and then we do it for pre-sales. So in pre-sales, it's a little different path as they go through it, and
Right.
then they move into field roles or other kind of inside technical roles that we have, and then we do the same for sales. And they usually initially start in either, and it's pretty common in the industry, but these SDR, sales development rep, or business
Right.
development calls. Kind of ease your way there where you're getting leads and you're following up, and then continue to grow your path and inside sales, and then out into outside sales, or continue with a career in inside sales. So it's a great way to bring new people in, new talent. And I think it's probably been one of the most rewarding things in my career to have seen that happen and be a part of it.
Awesome. So cool. So we'll touch on maybe quickly, kind of maybe explain your role at HPE.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I started in this role about 9 months ago, and I'm responsible for all of our compute business. So people are pretty familiar. Sometimes, if hopefully you are in the industry, but HP Reliant servers. But it's our 30th year, so it's a long time in the industry with such a great brand and recognition, and super proud of it. And we've had an opportunity to constantly innovate in a world that is constantly changing. You look at the world of AI, you look at the world of different workloads that are coming out. So I run the compute business. I've got part of a sales specialty team that I'm responsible for. I am responsible for our digital sellers and our inside sales team, and part of a pre-sales team, and the business management of that part of our business in North America, and supporting a great set of client specialists and client execs that we have that do an outstanding job. And I like to say, my job is to serve them and try to make their job easier so they can be successful and serve our customers.
Oh, that's great. So this huge kind of AI wave, kind of from a, I guess maybe kind of challenge or kind of transformation perspective with the with your teams, are the things there that you try to do different or better?
Yeah, I think this gets into this culture of practice and learning and constantly transforming yourself, right? And I think we've seen it through different eras when people have gone through web technologies, when people have gone through different DevOps technologies, and this is in the AI technology. So one, it's about upping everyone's game and their skill set, and they understand. I think it's about helping customers understand why they're using the technology and the business outcomes. And then the other thing I think we're trying to do is just make it simple for customers. Like, how do I get into this in a simple way that accelerates my journey along AI?
Yeah, amazing. Just crazy to see everything happening in that way as well. And from a challenge, I guess some of those things could be challenges as well. But kind of as you look forward for the year, any kind of one or two challenges in particular besides the economy, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know what? I'm really, just generally bullish on the business. I think there's been a couple years of people a little bit hesitant coming through COVID, and trying to extend the life of some of their infrastructure and equipment. I think with AI, some of that stuff getting long in the tooth, there's more and more investment that's happening right now, specifically in the business that I'm a part of. So we're excited about that. And we're a very partner friendly company, I would say. So very partner friendly. Large majority of our business goes through partners. So hey, when we went through COVID, there were challenges, partners faced challenges, supply chain. I'm really focused on, that relationship with our partners, because
Yeah,
that's critical to the business. So if I think about where I'm spending a lot of time personally, is with partners, because they're critical to our business, and we want them to be successful. So both a challenge and, at the same time, a huge opportunity to just accelerate that part of the business.
awesome. Who's the channel chief now?
Phil Soper out of
Oh,
Canada. Great. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. If you know Phil, came from a partner. He's really great to work with. I think he's a great leader there. Been in many, many meetings with him. I think, he really can appreciate where partners sit, having been in their shoes or in their chair before. And he's a great partner to work with of mine.
Gotcha. Really cool. And if you think about go-to-market leaders, or kind of CEO, or I guess probably from a leadership perspective, any couple people that come to mind at all?
Yeah, I think different at different phases. Where I've learned. I've really learned a lot from everyone I've worked with, and it's always been something a little bit different. Just like I said, you and I worked together, learned a number of things. We covered some of those things as we talked through here. I work for Paul Hunter. You mentioned there briefly. One thing I pick up from Paul is he's a very curious person. Like, his ability to ask questions, the level of questions, the depth of questions, is something that constantly challenges me, and I think I try to bring to the team. I remember there's a class I once took which was selling through curiosity, and I think he really emphasizes that. And it's like, I try to work with my team then. It's like, hey, you got to think of the second, third order level of questions you're going to get through that really help
Right.
you understand if you're inspecting the business. And even Tony Jerry is a friend of ours, Randy. You know Tony.
Yeah.
We worked. You had a chance to connect with him through some relationships you had with him, and I think maybe 10, 15 years ago, he was really helpful for me and just personally developing some skills that he's known for. So I give a little call out to Tony.
There you go. Awesome. Really, really cool. Well, time flies here when you're having fun. As we're at the tail end, if there's anybody has any comment or question, feel free to chime in. So for those that have known me at the end, kind of throw it at you, but any PG Randy stories to tell?
PG Randy stories. Maybe, maybe a little bit of a confession here, maybe that kind of thing is that, I worked in your organization for several years, and then, there was some discussion of what you were going to do with pre-sales or whatever. I remember Casey Choi that we worked with came up and said, "Hey, I'm kind of looking at you, maybe working for Randy." And I thought, I'm kind of scared of Randy. Like he's pretty intimidating, And I had that feeling for a little bit. And then about 6 months later, I remember I was in the Philadelphia airport, and I got a call from you, and you're like, "Hey, we're changing some things around, and you're going to lead pre-sales, and you're going to work for me." I'm like, "Randy, I'm all in. I'm super excited." And I got off the phone. I called my wife. I said, "Okay, I'm going to work for him." And so it's just stuck in my mind because at the time, I didn't know what to expect, and it was great working for you. And I saw how you created a lot of loyalty with people who were part of your staff and relationships that have extended many years past people who are working for. So it's been a good learning. But this is my little bit of story. So I was originally maybe intimidated or scared to work for you, but it was a great experience.
Oh, thank you. Easy decision to have you, and again, awesome to see it blossom and do so well. So, fantastic job here, and so much more we could talk about. But thanks. Next week we have Jim Delia, who's SVP Global Ops at Workday on. He has another great title topic: People, Scale, and Innovation: the three-legged stool of successful RevOps. So, digging a little bit more into the RevOps side, which I know is something that you're passionate about as well. So, Tucker, thanks for your help behind the scenes. This will be kind of reposted and blasted around. And Scott, you've been an awesome guest. Can't thank you enough.
Well, thanks, Randy. Thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. All right.